Don't think that you have to be so immersed in whatever's going on in your life that you don't have time to experience and acknowledge the emotions that you have. One way that people fight emotions like sadness, regret, grief, anger, all type different like negative emotions, they push it all the way back and they let life get in the way. See, the problem with that is when you put something under pressure for a very long time, it's bound to explode at some point. And that's very unhealthy. And I know that there are certain mindsets where it's like, I don't experience this, I don't feel this, and I only feel happiness, I only feel joy, da da da. But sometimes you just lying to yourself because we as humans experience an array of emotions on a daily basis. In Matthew chapter 14, when Jesus and his disciples received the news of John the Baptist's beheading, it don't matter what time period it is, that's a tough thing to stomach. And on top of that, when they try to get away, there was a crowd of people on the shore of where they were going. And I'm talking like thousands upon thousands. And of course we see when we read this passage that Jesus performs a miracle where he feeds the 5,000 men plus women and children. And then later in that chapter we see Jesus walking on water. But in Matthew 14 verse 23 we read, and after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. Now the rest of the chapter does not specify that he took time out to grieve, but we can infer through the context clues that that's part of why he secluded himself. Of course he had responsibilities, and of course he had these crowds of people that were harassing him, so to speak, but after all that happened, he secluded himself. But if that's not convincing enough to you because it wasn't specified what he did when he secluded himself and prayed, well, in John chapter 11, when Lazarus passes away and Mary Magdalene and Martha call Jesus and Jesus comes to the place where Lazarus was buried, Jesus knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, but he still had emotions because Lazarus was his friend and Lazarus had passed away. And I think it's important that we look at the shortest verse in the Bible, John chapter 11 verse 35, that says Jesus wept. In that small verse, we see a huge example of Jesus not ignoring his feelings, going through human emotions like the rest of us. Even though he knew he was going to raise Lazarus, he still felt that grief in his heart. So be like Jesus. Don't try to just push all your emotions away. Experience them, acknowledge them. But don't wallow in those negative emotions either. I think that's where a lot of unhealthy habits come into play. Don't treat regret like a roommate or sadness like a sister. Keep your distance from them, but still visit them. However, when you visit them, stay for 5 minutes, stay for 10 minutes, but don't stay. Go visit and then back to reality. But if you don't take that time to acknowledge that emotion, like I said before, you might end up blowing up, or you might end up getting stressed out. You might end up it can affect your health as well. But the last thing is, these negative emotions give you an opportunity to approach the throne of God. God, please help me understand my sadness and bring me through it. If I didn't trust God to bring me through my emotions, he might allow me to feel them until I call on him. Sometimes that's all we need to do is speak to the Father about how we're feeling. Whether it be anger, whether it be sad, whatever it is. But that's tonight's spiel. Love you. Good night.